Seven Deadly Sins, The Actor Overcomes, with the entire title of my IG Lives. Because, folks, we just have to overcome shit. That's just what it is. And this conversation this morning, woo, yeah, one of those. Okay, it is officially 9:03. Hang on. There we go. Pencil in here. We're officially ready to start. All right. So when you sit down to stop and think about the idea of changing reps, agents or managers, either one, I just put agents because it's a more synonymous, transcendent word for everybody. I know, understand that we've been in a professional relationship. I get it, completely get it. However, one of the things we don't do, because you guys know that I do dating analogies all the time, because to me, a massive percentage of this profession and the business of it is just as difficult, subjective, and intangible as dating and the eventual outcomes of dating. Well, here we are. We're talking about relationship, right? And so much of our relationships in life, much less as actors, will always, as the phrase goes, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. When you start heading down the road of pondering or becoming aware, we'll go with that, same thing in relationships, becoming aware that you feel there's a challenge or a problem in your representation relationship, stop right there. Just stop right there. The moment you have that thought, no different than when you find yourself either falling out of love or falling out of attraction to the person you're with, stop right there. And what I want you to do, step number one, is I want you to go back in your head, first thing, and think about the inception of that relationship. That's why you will see me put this content in the YouTube library. That's why when you sit down to meet with your representative, asking questions and getting certain answers at that time are so massively important to the end game when you eventually have to reach this decision of the end game with them. Because the inception is actually your answer and can drastically increase the ease with which you leave someone. Now, guys, changing agents or represent, not an easy process. I've done it a ton. It's not easy. I don't care how much of a jerk, whatever. It's just difficult, okay? It just is what it is. What's up, Eminem? Good to see you. What's up, Comic Cole? Welcome in. This is just a difficult proposition, but it doesn't have to be as difficult as we make it. Sometimes, because we are drama peeps, I think we like to over-dramatize things that don't have to be such. But the reality is that leaving your representative is tough. And one of the reasons why is because most of the time I have found at the inception point of coming into this professional relationship to be represented, we didn't ask the right questions to begin with. And that's a whole other Oprah, as I like to say. But you do have to set a precedent. You do have to set a ground floor. You have to set a foundation with your representative in terms of out of their mouth how much they feel and for what they can create actor activity. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about being a host. It doesn't matter if you're talking about being a game show person. It doesn't matter if you're talking about voiceover, on camera, daytime, commercial, theatrical, half hour, hour, feature. I don't care. It doesn't matter what type of work we're discussing. It just doesn't matter. What matters is, what did you establish, just like in dating? You wanted to have kids, you didn't want to have kids. You're a pet person, see, we got Christina, cat and dog, right? Dogs and cats living together. Don't worry, it's a line from Ghostbusters. My point being is that the inception of a relationship has a great deal to do with how you exit. But let's stop for a second and let's assess two things, two very important things you have to assess. Number one, when you are pondering changing representatives, the first thing you have to become conscious of, and I'm still stunned and amazed by the amount of our community that does not do this, is what does your contract say? What did you sign? Now, if you didn't sign anything, I suppose someone could say it's like breaking up without being married. There's less paperwork. But if you have signed either a GSA, a General Services Agreement, with an ATA agent, or you have signed a SAG-AFTRA contract with an agency that's franchised, and or you've signed a contract with your manager, the first thing you have to do is go make sure you know that you have the legal right to terminate that. That's item number one. You have to know whether or not you can get out, okay? Number two, well, technically it's number three. Number one, look at the inception of your relationship and the foundation that this has been predicated on, this business relationship. Number two, you have to review your contract and make sure you know the exact action protocol for terminating that contract. If you're not, then don't worry. I'm going to cover that at the very end in terms of the actual process. But item number three in this conversation, I tend to find is the one that we deem most important, which is why. Just like in relationships, y'all. You're going to sit down and what happens every single time you're pondering breaking up or thinking about this, every single person's going to ask you, well, why? You guys seem so happy. Okay, you seemed happy. What happened? And I want to make everybody realize that, yes, commonly what we do is most of us just assume, which is why I live my life by the 4 agreements, because I don't assume. We always tend to assume it's because, well, I'm not getting out. Or as I just call it, there's not enough professional, legitimate actor activity happening over a long enough period of time for you to finally go, things that make you want to go, So the truth of the matter is, that's most actors' why. But we have to understand, guys, there's other whys as to why you may want to leave your representative. Maybe that person has done something physically or personal that has bothered you to the extent that you realize, I just can't be with this person anymore. They've made either sexual advances or been inappropriate in your presence. I don't know. I'm just sharing with you that's possible. In my case, what's up, Peg Money? In my case, a lot of times, maybe this person has an ideology or has a side business or something that I didn't know at the time that I simply find untenable. Remember, they're a representative of you, which means for you in the professional community, guilt by association. So maybe you discover there's something about them or the way what they do on the side that is not okay with you. You have a philosophical difference and you don't want to be represented by that entity or that company. So you have physical Me Too issues, you have company ideology issues, or maybe you have legal issues. There are agents that have stolen money from actors. There's all sorts of reasons other than just, I'm not happy and I don't have any activity. So let's not always just default to that. But the truth of the matter is that regardless of the reason, because if it's legal and money, that can go into small claims court or be a civil action, which we do not. And my man Joey's here, civil action, Woburn, Massachusetts. Look at that brain right there, Joey. How about that for an association of a John Travolta movie? Can become a different subject. I'm not going to go down any further down the legal road. I'm just presenting it as the number 3 thing of the why. What's the why? Why do we want to go? And as soon as you have the first thought of that, this is my thing, we wait too long. Don't wait so long. When you start feeling that, you have to address it. And this is why changing agents is so paramount and predicated on the inception of your representation. It's incredibly important. Rico's in the house, people. Wow, long time, my brother. So going back to the very beginning, understand, during the pandemic, I'll just give you guys an example. I basically get on a Zoom every 2 weeks with my manager. Not because it's a law, because that's something that I established even before the pandemic. We just talk. We get together once in a blue moon, not too much. I don't bother him that much, but it's a part of the relationship I demand. I don't go running by the office at CESD, again, pre-pandemic. We can't do everything based on COVID, you guys. I didn't do it that often, but I was welcome to do it. Something also that I established. You have to establish stuff in a relationship. Initially by putting it on the table and discussing it, and then putting tweaks and specifics to it. People at CESD knew that if I randomly walked in on a Thursday at 2:30 in the afternoon, they didn't have to kick me out. I was coming by just go, yo, people, what's happening? Lot of love, lot of love, lot of love. Don't shoot nobody. I'm out. It just was my way of 2 minutes. Quick. These are things we establish. So in the reverse, on the way out of leaving your representative, I'm a big advocate of step number 4, giving people the opportunity, just as you would in a relationship, to alter their behavior. And this can start, again, based on your relationship and based on, this could be a text you send them, this could be an email you send them, or it could be, which would be my pref, having a coffee with them and go, yo, what's up? What's happening? Here's my, activity line. I'm not talking about submissions, guys. We can sit around all we want and go, are they submitting me? All we can work off of is, what have I gotten? What act or activity have I gotten? Yes, there are always slow periods, which is why I have a philosophy of, I will always give somebody 180 days, minimum. But every contract or any contract I would sign would have a 180-day out. But I'm going to give you 6 months. But if nothing's happening, or very little is happening, guys, you can't wait till you're the point of being pissed off. This is what actors do far too often. And the reason I believe we do it, I'm not right, I'm just sharing with you, I have a lot of history in this area. The reason I believe we do it is because we know that getting a representative is so difficult to do. And I understand that. But that doesn't change the fact that you can't diminish yourself and denigrate yourself, because the only person psychologically and emotionally that it hurts is you. So when you address this and you start realizing, man, hey, Mark, welcome in. Hey, Merrick, good to see you, kid. You got to sit down and go, okay, this is how I'm feeling. Hello. And you got to take action. You have to start a conversation about what's up. And again, commonly actors will say, what's wrong? What can I do? And far too often, representatives always default with, well, it must be your pictures, which I call bullshit on about 97.5% of the time, ish. It doesn't make me right, again. It doesn't make them wrong, again. However, it's just a really good default bullshit thing I've heard for 3+ decades. Hey, Mickey, good to see you, love. It's just a bullshit thing I've heard for 3+ decades. Every time an actor goes, hey, what's going on? I'm not getting out. It's like, oh, well, your pictures aren't working. And I always wanted to go, maybe you aren't working. So I'm not saying I'd say that. I'm just saying that's I'm saying. So we always want to address the why. Yeah, and Christy, absolutely, they can say it's your reels. There can be a reason for sure. Okay, I can even tell you right now that I've seen people get dropped over the term of the pandemic because they had they were immunocompromised, and somebody turned it into an anti-vax thing, and they said they needed to drop them because they couldn't get them out since they weren't vaccinated, which again is complete bullshit. So you have to have your own BS meter. I can't help you out with that because as the old phrase goes, I couldn't possibly tell you what your partner in life is saying that's bullshit, because that's your relationship. Okay? So I don't know. This is why the establishing thing that I've already said is so important when you come into the inception of any relationship in life, whether it's agents, managers, or one that's intimate and private. It doesn't make any difference. You have to go back to that and work your way forward. But what we don't do, and what you have to do, my number 4 beyond the why, is you have to talk, you have to ask, you have to try, in my opinion. You don't have to try forever. And make sure you listen, but you do have to make an attempt, in my opinion. Why? Because no matter where you're an actor, Paris, London, Australia, here, New York, Chicago, this is a small business. And all digital technology has done is made the U.S. a tiny business and the globe a small business. Walt Disney said it, it's a small world after all. Well, it sure as hell is a lot smaller now, and within the reality of entertainment and performers, it's a really small world. So to me, you still have to always do your professional protocol of communication and requesting a conversation and try to address the issue just as you would in any relationship and go from there. The question then becomes, okay, what do you do? See, the second that I feel that moment that we feel in relationships of unattractive, or you start looking elsewhere, or you just start viewing whatever sex you're attracted to in a different way while in your relationship, at that moment in time, you have to become conscious of that. And then when you reach out and make the step to talk, as we do in relationships, you have to then be putting something into your mind of, I don't have a lot of faith this is necessarily going to go the way I'd like it to go, so let me start looking. The worst thing we can do, which is common for actors, this is the big no-no of changing agents, is you don't say anything, you don't pay attention to your feelings, you don't say anything ahead of time, you don't have any professional conversations beforehand, and you wait all the way to the end of when you're totally internally pissed off and you wake up and you're just having angry coffee in the morning, and that's probably a brand name, but I don't know. And you wind up rushing and doing everything slam like a hard boot down on your computer. That's the mistake we make as emotional folks. And that's, hey, Mark, and that's what we can't afford to do. I don't want you to do that, because when we get emotional, you guys all know this, it affects how we think. It also affects how we communicate. Guys, I'm a nice dude, okay? I'm a Pisces. I'm an artist. But people who know me, man, I grew up in the rural South. People say all the time about getting upset. I'm like, bro, I'm not even close to upset. So everything that I talk about, this is why I want you to get your people and go to the YouTube channel and subscribe, because eventually I'm going to stop doing lives and stuff is going to be there. But I can go off in about 9 milliseconds. I just don't, because I prepare professionally to make sure that that's not their responsibility. It's not their fault, man. Okay? So it may be their fault intellectually, but you coming at somebody having done nothing for 6 months, carried these feelings, not communicated anything, and then all of a sudden it's just like, ah! Let's see if that's the thumbnail they put on this IG Live. That'd be funny. That's not the appropriate way to go about it. You have to do some form of communication, and then what you have to do, just to calm, as you would in a job. If you knew you were thinking about quitting, you'd start looking before you quit. Actors commonly don't start looking or trying to get a meeting until they've already gotten irritated, pissed off, and walked out. This is not good protocol, you guys. You got to dovetail that shit, okay? And guys, everybody knows that I'm a big ethical dude. I've paid dozens and dozens of commission checks to representatives on jobs I got myself. I'm an ethical guy. There's nothing unethical about taking agent or manager meetings while you're still represented by someone else. That's where the dating analogy goes bye-bye. But I can keep the dating analogy similar to, in that there's nothing that's humanly natural about having thoughts of other people when you're unhappy in your relationship. You just don't act on it. You get out. Then you act on it. In this scenario, you are more than welcome to go out and try to create meetings with new agents or new managers while you are still represented. That happens every day in Hollywood. I can bet you it happens in Sydney and Melbourne and London and Paris too. There's nothing unethical about that. So this is what we don't tend to do. Because if you feel like you have good pictures, if you feel like you have some decent contacts, if you have a couple of credits, if you feel, Chris, as you said, if you feel like you have a good reel, and someone simply isn't doing your job, one of the guys you'll find on the second playlist, I don't know, I lose track on my YouTube channel, the one that says Q&A, all my Actor Biz Guru stuff. My friend Michael Braverman, manager for years, he phrased it like this. He said, your representative has to be like a dog with a bone who is enthusiastic and excited to have you as a client. And if enthusiasm and excitement wanes enough, and it does in relationships and it does in professional relationships. If it wanes enough that they don't think about you often enough, yes, your activity is going to go boo for sure. And all you can do is try and talk to them. But then at some point, you got to go. You just can't wait until the bitter end to finally do all of these actions. You got to start, got to be focused on it. When you feel it, got to pay attention to it, got to manage it, got to communicate about it. You have to try. And then what I don't see people do is start trying to get meetings. And then there's always this scary question. And somebody says, well, wait a second, Kevin. What if I'm in a meeting and then they ask me, well, why are you looking for a new agent? Yeah, that's what they should ask you. And they're going to ask you because you would ask it of you if you were the agent meeting with somebody who's leaving someone. So item number 5 is you have to make sure you have an answer to that question that doesn't sound like a whiny jerk. You just have to say, well, look, I've been with them for 8 months and I have blah and I have blah and I have blah and I got new pictures and a thing and a blah and a whoop-de-doo and a hoo-hoo dilly and I have this and I've had conversation with them and yet I've had, one co-star audition in 9 months. And that's why I'm looking. Don't say with an edge. Don't get pompous and be. This is the hard part for us as emotional performers who don't want to give a shit about the business. I told you guys all the time. We don't like the business. I totally get it. But not liking something like chemistry or physics or geometry, I hated geometry, and yet I'm a really good packer. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, just because you dislike something doesn't mean you get to get an F in it in school and still graduate. That's been my long-standing metaphor for this. Sometimes when you don't like something, you just have to pay more attention to it. So guys, you have to have an answer. Number 5, to the question you're going to get in a meeting if you're taking that meeting while you're still represented with someone. Or even if you aren't. Even if that person went out of business. Even if you left that person already. And they say, well, why'd you leave? Okay, why'd you leave? You have to have an intelligent professional. Remember, this is a meeting of inception with them despite the fact you're exiting on the other side. So this inception moment for you would be huge for them, just like it is in dating. Just like something someone might say or do in the first date or two of going out with someone. These are inception moments. So how you answer the why are you leaving completely sets the table potentially for anybody that you next might be represented by, and that becomes your beginning. That's why you have to have that answer down. And it can be a negative statement. It just can't come out as cranky, judgmental, and whiny, because I don't want to work with that. Every single representative on the planet that's been doing this for any period of time has dropped people and been dropped. Every single one of them. Every one of them. One of the hardest moments of my entire career was leaving a commercial agent I had been with for 7 years, and I adored them. And I may have to do it again. But I sat in their office crying. And all 3 of those people, to this day, are still friends of mine. And the way I handled it and the way I went about leaving them, if I, for whatever reason, wanted to go back to that agency, which again happens in Hollywood all the time, they'd probably say yes. Not because of overt love, but because they know I'm a professional. And I handle things the way they have to be handled, even when they're difficult. This wasn't a text. It wasn't an email. It was literally sitting in the office with 3 of them crying. And I left. I've seen that movie more than once. Now, as I wrap this up, what we have to do now is we have to make sure we close the door. That's item number 6. You have to close the door and realize that whether you have a signed contract of any kind, or whether or not you're just working with them and you're listed on all of the casting sites wherever you live, that make you legitimately with them. You are legally represented by them, which means you need to legally, with evidence, depart from them. And that means you have to communicate. Back in the day, every single time, absolutely, Mark, it's 100% not personal. And that's why, literally, in my book, I talk about the fact that people in life offend me all the time. Hollywood's never offended me. Hollywood is crystal clear about what Hollywood is. And it's not that it doesn't give a shit, but in the macro, it's a multi-billion-dollar multinational business set out to make money off of us. And if that's a problem for you, that's why this becomes a problem. Because this is just a business end when you change representatives. That's what it is. So, but what you have to do is you have to type certain language and you have to keep it simple. Now, back in the day, I would send a certified letter because I wanted to make sure they got it. And then you had to go pick up physical pictures and blah, blah, blah. Today, you can just do it in writing. And then you remove yourself and remove them from your casting profile, and that's fine. But this is part of the thing. When you type stuff, don't be a cranky jerk. You know, hopefully you had a recent conversation about this subject, and all you have to do is write them, hey, so-and-so, per our conversation the other day, I just wanted to let you know that as of, and this is the most important part, you got to put a date and time. I'll give you an example. As of tomorrow, Tuesday, March 15th at 5 p.m. PST, I am going to be moving on as a client and will no longer be represented by you. Name the company. Thank you for everything that you've done. I wish you the best of professional continued success. And that's it. It's all you have to write to somebody to officially end. What I always do, if this is an email, which is common, which is fine, it's in writing, BCC yourself. Always. I do this constantly. I've been BCCing myself for 15 years. You have to, and I save it in a folder. That's a form of your certified mail. But you have to draw a clear line, and you have to close the door, and you have to move on. You can only beg and try to convince somebody so much, and eventually you have to go. And then you move on to the next person. Try to learn a few things about maybe what you didn't say, what you didn't ask, what you didn't present in the inception, and bring that into the next scenario so you don't do that. Maybe get a little better about communicating along the way. But at the end of the day, guys, understand that just like it is in life, some people get very lucky with an early representative they stay with for the entire career. It does happen, and I know people like that. But for most of us in the dating life and also as a performer, it doesn't typically work out with every type of agent every single time from the inception of one. It's not uncommon to have to go through 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 before you find somebody. It's not uncommon, so don't take it personally. But rewatch this, rewatch it, get your friends to watch it, and then for the love of God, go over to the YouTube channel, to The Kevin E, and subscribe. Hello! And this conversation, everybody understand. Your individual circumstances will have some differences. That's why this is only 30 minutes. I could do this conversation for an hour and a half, and I could do a private on this with every single person ever, because of the unique wrinkles to your relationship in this scenario with whoever that person is. So this is a real baseline of how to go about doing this process. And that's how fast 30 minutes goes on this subject. I could go on forever. Okay, it's Monday. That's it, guys. It'll be on the grid. Again, please get people to follow me here. Go over to the YouTube channel and go to kevinewest.com if you want to look at the blog, my book, etc. You guys rock. Thanks for being here. It's a hard subject. It's not going to stop being a hard subject. And as I said at the top, this is the same damn conversation I would have had in 1991. This thingy here hasn't changed an ounce for us. So this is a transcendent set of guidelines for you guys, okay? Peace out. See my global thespian soon. Y'all be cool. Bye.